So we're on Kapitel 35, and we're talking about the fact that this particular Kapitel is a little bit disturbing at the beginning because he's actually coming. It doesn't say exactly which situation. Some of the Kapitel, actually tell what historical event he was going through in his life that caused him to express himself this way. This particular one doesn't seem to be referring to a specific event that I know of in his life. Maybe there's some unfortunately I don't know about that do refer to one, but this is just a general being in what they call a shval hamatzah, a very low time. It's like he's really down and out at this point. And we'll see from how it expresses itself. But I think that there are, and I don't know if we'll get through the whole thing, it's kind of long, but hopefully we'll start to identify, some of the major themes here. Okay, so he starts at saying the David. So he says that this particular kapitel was said when David was at a time when he was nistalku mira malchus es moichin shalom. He's talking about that a time when the Shekhinah, the whole thing we're talking about over and over again, as we know, he's talking about malchus as the Shekhinah. That's talking about the general presence of Hashem in the world, as opposed to the moichin, which is the intellect, which is the illumination. So it's a question of top to bottom, bottom to top. There's this constant vertical interaction, and the theme that he goes through all the time here is that the effort is always to elevate the bottom till it's elevated through the moichin, through this intellect, to be able to raise it up to the highest levels, where they become both it's also comes to masculine and feminine aspects. So to bring up the feminine aspect, which is makabel, which is receiving, to bring it up so high that it becomes almost equal or virtually equal with the masculine, and that's the level which he calls shtei meluchim mishtamshim bekeser echad. The two kings are then able to share the same crown, which is really the Geula. That's what Mashiach. At that point, Mashiach comes.
The moon.
Right. So they become two stable oilers like Gedolim. At that point, they become equally bright, and that's really Mashiach's time. So that's what we're looking for. So here he's starting at a point where I think we talked about once before also, where it's such a low level where we're left with Malchus alone. So that's why it says just Lidovid. Usually it says Seach Lidovid or Mizmor Lidovid or some kind of other thing together with David. Here it's just plain David. It's like nothing else. He's down and out. It's completely emptied out. So there is no moichin at this point. Malchus is sitting there. It's in Golis, whatever, and there is no intellect that's illuminating. It's a person. You can compare it to a person that just doesn't have his mind together at all. He's just completely.
So you have moichin the katnut, moichin the gadlut, and no moichin at all.
Well, yeah, this is probably even. We talk a lot moichin the katnut here, but this is probably even below that. Whatever. We'll get up to that later. But he says nishora bechinas nekuda. It's just a point. At this point, Malchus is simply a point. It doesn't have any particular benefits or advantages at this point. There's no power. Okay, so it's just this very vulnerable nekuda, one point. And then the trouble is when it becomes a point like that, then as we've talked all this time, there's all these other forces, the forces of the chitzoinin, the makatrigin, the external forces which are always ready to attack at any point. Just learning another interesting was just learning about this parsha talks about Amalek, and one of the reasons why Amalek was singled out as being a particular force that has to be wiped out completely, and we put such an emphasis on wiping out Amalek, is because Amalek was waiting around for the time when the Yidden would be at their lowest possible point, and they would be able to attack when Hashem would not protect them. So because they were like lying in wait, they're trying to take advantage of the distance between the Yidden and Hashem, and they figured now Hashem's not going to help them. And you see this is a common theme, a thread that we see in all the worst enemies of the Yidden. For example, Bilam that wanted to Dafka knew that the Yidden would only be vulnerable when they were distanced from Hashem, so that he tried to get them to do Averis so that they would be distanced from Hashem. So, and then they'd be able to attack, or they'd be able to, because as long as Hashem's behind them, they can't conquer them. So they tried to cause this either to wait until the Yidden themselves are on a low level, or to cause some kind of a feud, some kind of a breakup between them. So, for example, with Amalek, they waited until the Yidden said, "Hayesh Elikim Imayim," if is Hashem here or not. So when they came to that low level, but they didn't see Hashem with them anymore, so they took that opportunity to attack. So because of that, they're singled out as being a particularly dangerous enemy that should be wiped out completely. And that's like the worst, because they're taking advantage of the situation. They're not. It's not like somebody who's attacking you, from an equal at an equal standpoint. They're waiting for this period to come through. So anyway. So he says, David is just okay. So these Mekatrigim are trying are waiting, for this opportunity to attack. And now, so what is David Melech's strategy, or what is he trying to do at this point? He's appealing to the Atika Kadisha. Now, he goes right to the top. David Melech was very much aware that when Hashem chooses to shine this illumination from the highest levels, Atika Kadisha is like, Kesser, that's like the very highest levels of illumination, then all of the enemies are dispelled. Enemies can't stand up to that kind of a bright light, and they all just, they flee. So he's appealing to that highest level to try to save him. Okay, so how is he expressing it here? So he says, L'David, Rivo Hashem es Yerivai. So that's similar to what we say in Shmona Esrei, that Hashem should take up our struggle. Hashem should we're fighting a war here. We're fighting desperately for survival, and Hashem should take up our fight. So he says, Riva es Yerivai, Lecham es Loichamon. So he says, what's the Yerivai? So Yerivai is the chitzonim that's connected Zer'am. We're talking about all the midas. So Yerivai is specifically talking about something that is connected all of those midas, but that have four moichim. There are four levels of intellect which are connected that aspect of the enemies that correspond to the Zerampin, which is the all of the midas. And those four moichin are connected the four miluim of Ein Beis Samad Gimel Mem Hey Beis Nin. There's the different miluim of the Shem Havaya. As we know that there's the milui of the Yidden and the Heyan and the Alphin, and these are different ways. The gematria of each of these corresponds to those four, and together they all are the gematria is a Yerivai. The word Yerivai is connected to all four of those. And they want to bring a kitzrig on the Yidden from these moichin. So I was thinking that you could possibly compare this to the idea of the Haskalah. The movement of the Haskalah was a very dangerous movement, and probably affected the Yidden more than perhaps any other movement in history, other than maybe you could talk about the Hellenists, who were probably very similar, because the idea was that the Yidden have always been known for their tremendous intellect and their chokmah and everything else that they've been able to, even the Greeks considered to be a philosopher people. We were always specifically envied for our intellect, right, and for our chokmah. And what these movements attempted to do was to take that chokmah and turn it around, and to show it and to claim that the Yidden were actually, instead of being the deepest thinkers, that they were really superficial and outmoded and old-fashioned and all this kind of thing. So they were trying to show that they were instead taking the attitude that the Goyim were on a higher level, and that the Yidden have to turn around their philosophies and their outlooks to correspond and be more consistent with the Chachmas HaGoyim. Because they began to admire the Goyim, and they looked at the Goyim as being on a higher level, and everything and so their biggest tool that they used was to ridicule the Yidden Davka on the level of Lamoicha. They were trying to make fun of the Jewish intellect, and they didn't realize that they didn't, either because they didn't go deep enough. So they weren't interested in going deep enough to see the depth in the Yiddish outlook, or they were just so overwhelmed with the Chachmas HaGoyim that they decided that was really what they wanted, as opposed to the Jewish. So even those that remained from outwardly that they were Shom Torah mitzvahs, they still wanted to turn things around so that the Chachma would be in line with the Goyish Chachma. So in that sense, you could say that there could be an explanation of this idea of the Makatrigim with Davka taking the enemies. The Katrig is the ones that bring the complaints against the
no, the other way.
Okay, so they were Davka Mekatrig on the level of the Moicha. In other words, they were giving complaints against the Jewish Chachma. They were saying the Jewish Chachma is already old-fashioned. It's not relevant. It's not relevant anymore. Right? Okay, so these are so that's the level of the moichin that's the evil moichin that's on the level of the midas. Then he says loichin es lachmai. That's the loichamoy. That's talking about the konsoinim that is connected to shchina. Okay, which is the shchina is called lechem. Lechem is compared to the shchina. This lacham is loichamai. So that's
the shchina meaning the shchina.
The shchina.
The shchina or the shchina.
No, shchina, the divine presence. Okay, so the shchina, he says, it says lacham es loichamai. Lacham is also a word meaning fight. So fight for loichamai is for the sake of the shchina. So he's appealing to the Eibush that he should fight our battle for the sake of saving the shchina. And what does this mean? We're always saying in all its tefillos, we're constantly davening for the shchina, right? But what does that mean? The shchina itself is in Golos. The shchina itself is not in the right place it's supposed to be, and we ask for but the shchina is Hashem's presence in the world. So in a sense, we're asking Hashem, like Kodesh Baruch Hu, is the more transcendent aspect of Hashem, to have rachmanis on Hashem that's in the world, and to see that that's in Golos, because that's the whole idea that Hashem Himself is going to come back from Golos. So Hashem is coming back together with us from Golos. He's sent the shchina in Golos together with us. So we're asking for Hashem in Himself to have rachmanis on His own presence. And that when you talk about mispal, that we're davening for the sake of the shchina, we're davening for this, that Hashem should, in a sense, be reunited with His shchina by bringing out His presence in the world, as opposed to removing it from the world. Because when the shchina is in Golos, then Hashem is not visible in the world. He's not. We can't perceive Him. And the whole thing is that we are here in order to make Hashem visible in the world. So it's, in a sense, it's like a win-win. We're telling Hashem to save us for the sake of His own shchina, and that is our whole tachlis anyway. So that's how we're bringing it in. So in a sense, what comes out is this amazing thing is that when the Yidden are in trouble, when we're on a low level, and we're forced then to reach out to Hashem and call, because if things are going well for us, so we don't have it does nothing to push us to cry out to Hashem and to really implore Hashem to bring Himself back, because we're doing okay. But as long as when we're in trouble, then we have to ask Hashem to save us, which is in a sense saving Himself. Because He's really bringing Himself. We're saying, come back into the world, show everyone that you're here for us. And that was the whole thing with Yetzias Mitzrayim. And Yetzias Mitzrayim was that the Yidden's mamish, that's what it was. Hashem was in Golos. Nobody knew about Hashem. Hashem was totally invisible. The Paro denied Hashem. He wanted to contradict that there was any Metzias of Hashem at all. And the Yidden were in Golos suffering, and they had seemed like no hope. And they're calling for Hashem. And this was even more of a pella, because it was in Yisudis the La'ela. It was that Hashem Himself was the initiator. The Yidden didn't even have the das to be able to call out to Hashem. It was Hashem initiated the whole thing from the time he reached out to Moshe Rabbeinu to represent him, and Moshe Rabbeinu didn't want to go. So it was like he was like mamish forcing himself on the situation. He wasn't waiting for anybody to come and beseech him to come in, but he was putting himself into the situation, totally revealing himself. So, but that was for the sake of Kiddush Hashem. So it came out that Paroi, through his denial of Hashem, became a keli, a vessel for a Kiddush Hashem. And that was the biggest Kiddush Hashem, is that you could take the biggest enemy and turn him around into the biggest Kiddush Hashem, because through him, Hashem's presence was revealed. So that's really the whole dynamic that's taking place all over the place and is consistent throughout all of the tzuras, is that when we call out to Hashem, we're calling out to Hashem for His own sake. Leman Shimcha, Leman Shchinascha, Leman everything, all the Lemans in the Slichas are all talking about not for our sake, for your sake. Do it for your own sake. The whole top of the world is you should be revealed. So we're asking you now, come and reveal yourself. Okay. He says, and he brings another pshat that he says that Riva is a lotion of Yirbe, that it should be multiplied. That the moichin, that this intellect should be so strong and so multiplied that it should be like overwhelming and be able to itself come out so strongly that it's going to overwhelm everything else. And then he says that the Gimel Havayas, that the 3 times the Shem Havaya 26 is the gematria of Lechem, and so he's saying that we're bringing down, this is in a Mashiach, that we're bringing down this Lechem, this light, this illumination of the Erech Haim for the sake of Loich Hamai, that it should illuminate the 3 Havayas of the Shem Havaya. That's gematria, which is also, he says, 3 times the gematria kale. So there's a meaning of a kale echad miyamin. One kale is from the right hand side, and one kale from the left side, and one kale from the center, which is corresponds to the idea of chesed gvur and tiferes, and that is the gematria of mogain, which is 3 times the gematria of kale. So that's why he says hachzik. That next posting, hachzik mugain v'tzina. So you should bring chizik, the idea of a shield and something that's guarding us. The kima be'ezrusi, and you should be elevated. It's an idea of rising up to help me. So the tzina, he says, is the level of keser. Because it's tzina rutzon tachreni, and rutzon is in keser. So tzina is connected to the idea of rutzon and keser. And mugain, so and that's the idea of Erech Anpin, which is the very, very highest level. And Kiba, Tzina is also a shield. Mugain and Tzina both. What is that?
A buckler on a shoe. A buckle.
Tzina is a buckle?
A buckle.
Buckler. Shield and buckler.
The whole shield and buckler and riots. No.
Probably some protection.
Some kind of a protection device.
Yeah, I don't know. Buckle.
Okay, and Bezrusi, it's interesting, he brings out the word Bezrusi, the word Ze'er, which is also the idea of Ze'er Anpin. So that the Ma'oiris of Erech Anpin, again, the Moichin should illuminate again, they illuminate the Ze'er Anpin, which is the lower levels of the lower Midas. And Malchus is also considered, it's also called, calls the Ze'er Bala Ezrusi. So that's the idea of wait a second. So then he's connecting. He's talking about connecting the moichin with the midas again. We're talking about that the intellect should be united with the midas. Ezrusi, the next pasuk. Hakseg mogen sima kima be'ezrusi. And then he says the next pasuk again. We're talking. There's a lot of lashonis of different kinds of weaponry here. So it's like bring out all of your armaments, all of the it's because there's a war going on. We're in a very bad situation, and you got to bring out all of the heavy armaments here. The Hurek Chanis is goy liklois loy fai. So he's really talking. It's all military lashon here. Hurek Chanis is goy liklois loy fai is also literally, it's a lashon of bearing the spear and cutting off the enemy that's pursuing me and that wants to pursue me. And okay, so we'll talk about that in a minute. So Horek Chanis. So he says Chanis is the idea of Chanin b'Racham. So we're appealing to the Rachmanis of Hashem. Sheyurek es Chaninis. So this Chanis becomes now an idea of Chaninis, that the chain that the Yidden have for Hashem's eyes, the charm that we find in Hashem's eyes, that that should be revealed, and that should stimulate Hashem to again go against the the Kitzonim, that want to cut off this kindness. So that again is a reference to the idea that Amalek is always trying to be mekatrik. He's trying to cut off the chain that Hashem, that the Yidden have in the eyes of Hashem. The whole idea of mekatrik is that he's trying to cause a distancing of Hashem from the Yidden, that Hashem shouldn't love the Yidden anymore. He's bringing out the worst parts of the Yidden. He's trying to point out all of our failures so that Hashem shouldn't have this chain anymore. So that's also idea. So he's saying, on the contrary, show us this chain, and then we'll be, we have to revive this chain in the eyes of Hashem. We don't listen to the kachim that we're trying to do.
The previous verse used the two words Yerivi, those who my adversaries,
right,
and Lochmai, my actual attackers.
Right.
Had the two main adversaries of David HaMelech were Shaul and Absalom. Had the feud been limited only to these individuals, it would have remained a mere riv, quarrel. But now that many others joined forces with the principal antagonists, this limited riv, quarrel, turned into a full-scale milchoma.
With the Pishka.
The difference between these two words, Riv and Lochmai, can be understood in the light of the fact that every war which flares up on earth is evidence of a tremendous spiritual struggle between celestial forces representing each side. David asks that Hashem first vanquishes adversaries above the Yerivi, and consequently this will spell the doom of those who make actual war below Lochmai.
Right, exactly. So this is so what we're talking about here is what's going on upstairs. This is talking on the level of the Kitrugim that are attacking on the higher level. Okay, so then he says, so Nafshi is Malchus. That's a Shechina again. So I said to it's hard to see who's talking to who exactly here, but he says something like, he's saying that you should close off this or don't listen to this attempt of the Mekatchigim to cut off the chain that we find in Hashem's eyes, to the point where ultimately the Zeir Anpin, the Midas, will be able to say that to Malchus. Again, we're trying to unify the Midas with the Shechina, and which is called Nafshi. Yet she will say only that my rescue will come from this, and the Chitzonim will be closed off because of the Rachmim that Hashem. He's saying basically turn the tables. Rather than listening to them and all their complaints against us, remember, the chain that you have for us to begin with, and turn around the whole thing so that the Rachmim is revealed. And then Yevoishiv Yikolmi Mevakshi Nafshi. So then Mevakshi Nafshi, again, those that are attempting to destroy Nafshi, the Shechina, should be Yevoshi, that they will be embarrassed and they will be disgraced and completely, that these. He says that there's 4 klolos that are revealed in these few psukim that are connected. These 4 klippas, the 4 types of enemies, which are connected the 4 oilamis, the four worlds of let's see this Yitzia. And those are Yevoishi Yikolmi Mevakshe Nafshi, because Malchus we're talking about that Nafshi is the Malchus of Oilam Atzilus. That's the highest world. That's Nikra Nefesh. And then, because they want to Chas v'Shulam, that they want to have a hold. They want to be able to hold on to this Nafshi. Because the Malchus of Atzilus, like they say, you should be calm. So they should be because they want to go for this highest level of Malchus. That's how they should be eventually disgraced. Now, one thing I was thinking about that this could be referring to is that the idea that virtually all, if you look into the real sources of everything, it comes out that all of the good ideas, so to speak, and the major themes in the literature and in the religion and in all of the higher level stuff that the Goyim, at least in the Western world, have represented, and maybe in the Eastern world as well, originate in Yiddishkeit. That if you see that all of these religions were simply imitating, the things that we brought into the world to begin with. And then they claimed it for their own. So, Christianity is obviously full of these kinds of things, but even in Islam you also see a lot of this. In fact, somebody told me that there was that the son of the Rambam, you always think the Rambam is very rationalist and not mystic at all, but his own son studied some of the Islamic mystics because he held that it was really all coming from the Jewish mysticism to begin with. So some of the ways that they developed it or brought it out, he was even willing to study their stuff because he held that the source of the whole thing was from Yiddishkeit anyway.
Even Hinduism can be shown to have origins from Judaism, reincarnation, Newmanism, and many Jews who go to India when they come Balshuva, they say we heard this in India.
Right. Yeah. I have a brother-in-law who's a computer programmer, and they for some reason felt that he would be appropriate to work with some of the Indian programmers that they had to deal with. And he would go there, and then some of these religious things would come out, and the tremendous similarities came out. So it's obvious that they were, there was definitely identical. Even with the Chinese, and there's all kinds of things that. But I'm not just talking about that. I'm talking about the Western. All of a lot of them studied Kabbalah. And out of that came something, this alchemy and the Rosicrucians and all these different movements, and the Freemasons, and a lot of these movements drew a great deal from Yiddishkeit. Okay, so that's the highest level. So again, they should be pushed back. They should be pushed back. So this gematria of Shin Yud. So he says that the Shin Yud Oilamos Oilam Abriya. So he said that this corresponding to 4 different worlds. Atzilus, Briya, Tziyasiya. So he said the first one was Nefesh. He's talking about is in Atzilus. Now Yisrael Yochav Yachri Choshvei Reusi. He's talking about Yachri is the gematria of Shin Yud, which is the Shin Yud Oilamos Oilam Abriya, which is the next world down. And then the Midah Shahim Moedin Nikach Moedin Lohem. It's just like they wanted to push me back, so instead they should be pushed back. And he can moitzlifnei riach malach Hashem doiche. He's talking about that they should be blown away like the chaff in the wind, and a malach should pursue them. Malach Hashem should pursue them, push them away. So that's referring to the oil of Yitzira. Let's bring that in because kamoitz is the gematria with the coil of Yaakov, and Yaakov is connected the oil of Yitzira, and so that's that they'll be dispersed like the wind. The Malach Hashem is referring to the Soid of Zeranpin, so you should push them away, and the Doich is Toiv, and Doich is Gematria Toiv, whatever, that should push away. Then he darkam Hoishek Laklois, and Malach Hashem Roidfam. So again, we got Malach Hashem in there again, and now it's talking about that you should pursue them. So all of this stuff is really imploring Hashem that He should directly step in and take action, because we're not doing anything here. It's not even asking Him to empower us to do anything. We're telling Hashem, send them out, get rid of them. We can't do it ourselves. So you gotta really take it into your own hands here. So that's Chalak Loikois is connected to Olam Asiyah, the lowest world, that they want to Chas V'Shalom make Kedusha dark. They want to make it dark for the Kedusha. And the Olam Asiyah, and darkness is of course always referring to a lack of inspiration, a lack of illumination, a lack of understanding. So they want to create this Bilbo. I always want to talk about the enlightenment. You really call them endarkenment, because it's not. It brought a tremendous darkness into the world because it took out the light. So the darkam is gematria with the coil of with Torah, which is the dinim of the Chamisha Gevirus of the Natzpah. So if you know any of this stuff, it's all referring to dinim. So he says that the oil of the Chokhmah, Malchus, the light of this wisdom that was until now, in all these years was in Golis, and nothing remained but this small point. that should be multiplied and should become great in the Malchus up until the level of Chokhmah. It should go all the way up unto the level of wisdom, from the bottom to the top, and then the oil of the Chokhmah could come down, and with the oil, it's interesting, with the oil of the Chokhmah, he says it's going to be Yachshich Eineihem, it's going to darken their eyes. It's like blindness, essentially. They're going to be so blown away by the Chokhmah that's going to cause darkness for them. So the darkness that they wanted to bring on the world is going to again turn around in their faces and cause the darkness for them. Hichinam tomuli shachas rishtam chinam chofed nafshi. So here he's emphasizing the word chinam here. So he says, he's explaining this here. He says that it has to do with this Talmud Shakas Rishtam, that they're trying to, as we said before, the Klippas are always trying to chop the Shefa. They're always trying to take everything for themselves. And you can compare that to the days of one of the greatest political struggles that went on during we're talking about the Skala, during the time of reform in Hungary, that it was, and also by Shimshon Hirsch in Frankfurt, Germany. There was a tremendous struggle going on because the Neo-Logans, the reform movement in the very early stages, was appealing. It was a very political thing because they were getting a certain amount of money from the government, and the government had to determine who was the representative of the Jews. So till then, there had only been the Orthodox community. But now the Reform community wanted to get up, and they wanted to get a piece of the action. So there was a tremendous amount of political struggle between the Orthodox community and the Reform community. The Reform community were really trying to come in and take either control altogether, or at least get a good, hefty portion of the budget that was allotted to the Jewish community for themselves, because they wanted to say we're just as valid.
Hungarian Empire
And there was a lot of it was Hungary. They really had a very strong thing. And also Germany. So this is just like a representation in this world of a spiritual struggle going on. Because it's the whole idea, as we've talked about many times, this idea that the Shefa, the whole idea is the energy which is coming down from Hashem has to be distributed in the world, and these klippas are trying to take away as much as they can from themselves. So wherever they can find a leak, or wherever they can put themselves into more of a valid investment than the Yidden. So they're trying to, and all the Umas-Oilam are in on this. All the rest of the world want to get a piece of the action. They're all struggling to get a piece of this. So he's saying,
it's been said that the two Jewish movements of the Haskalah versus the Hasidus movement, two strong movements at the end of the 18th century, had to come out in the Napoleonic wars. And similarly, in this century, the last century, between the two ideas of secular Zionism versus secular socialism in the Jewish world, had to come out with the Nazis. The National Socialists had to come out. As it says here, every war which flares up on earth is evidence of a tremendous spiritual struggle above.
Good insights.
Not over yet.
So, Zionism and the socialist Zionism and the secularism. The seculars show socialism.
Socialism with the Jews, and Zionism,
secular Zionism came from socialism.
And into a movement called Nazi, which means National Socialist.
Okay, so
there's a struggle between the two, and that causes the
So anyway, so Shachas, he says, is this idea of this Shefa that they're competing for. Tamli Reshes, that they're trying to create this net, this trap that they want us to fall into, and the trap is essentially to catch the Shefa that we're allowing to fall away. Sometimes when the Yidden do Averis, what they're essentially doing is creating leaks in the tzenoirus, in the pathways through which the Shefa comes into the world. And
so this is not yunukim. It's not like a yunuka. It's suckling. It's causing it to fall down.
Right. When whatever we do wrong causes either blockages to happen in this lines of the energy that's supposed to come into the world, which also is a problem, which is also an opportunity for them to step in and try to get from those places that are blocked up. It could overflow or whatever it is. And also there are actually, holes. We create holes in the, and things. We have to, through Tshuva, we try to patch up those holes. But there's all of this shefa that's going in other directions that they're able to get instead of, the idea is when the lines are clean and everything's clear, so then it goes where it's supposed to go. But when it doesn't, it gets, diverted into all kinds of other places. It's not supposed to be. So then he says, so the shoya again is total destruction. So that's, he says again, referring to the Bria, and there is supposed to be this the zivig of Zochar Nekeva. So that's the idea that when is that he should bring on them this destruction. That shoya, the gematria of the oasis is the koil yeshiva. There's a mukam yeshiva oilam. Oh, so they want to bring. Oh, instead of bringing yeshiv to the oil, instead of bringing, in other words, in order for the world to flourish, there has to be a stable, energy source that's able to distribute energy stably into the world. And they're able to build things up, but they want to cause this destruction where everything's being destroyed, and also. Instead, and it brings the world into a state of tohu vavohu, because they're bringing these false ideas into the world, it brings confusion and ultimately destruction. Another example of that would be that, like in the 60s, so you have this tremendous counterculture, and everything was a tremendous influx of ideas and ideologies with the hippies and with the New Age and with all of these different ideologies that were putting themselves up to be, this thing that was going to save the world, and the age of Aquarius, all of these different ideologies that were trying to bring, some kind of salvation supposedly, and they were really based on nothing. Free love, free this, free that, everything was based on something like also the internet, the internet bubble, and that bubble burst. It was also based on false ideologies, that you can give something for nothing. And communism is also an example of a false ideology. These ideas, the concept of ideology is that you're taking moichin. You're taking, again, the chokhmah, you're enclothing something which is really based on Yetzer Hara, and you're enclothing it in all this false rhetoric and ideology that's really based on nothing. And so sometimes it seems so attractive that people latch onto it and it becomes a whole movement, and then it implodes on itself, because eventually it's just the fact that it's so devoid of any emes just ultimately is doomed to failure. But they don't see it. But at the beginning, they think they're going to save the world. So it's only because it's not based on Torah. So obviously, it's doomed to failure eventually. It's just a matter of how long it goes till it finally fizzles out. So the idea of a zivig is something which really bears fruit. In other words, a zivig is a real unification of a real idea of masculine and feminine, which is give and take and whatever, on an emistic basis. And when that happens, it gives birth to something real. But when they try to bring in all these false ideologies, what happens is that no zivig is able to take place, because it's false and false. There's an interesting thing that we're talking about, the idea of bechira. That just in the last parsha, the Gemara 9 talks about how Paroi really didn't have any bechira until the Gula. We talked about that Hashem took the Bechira away from Paroi. Really, he didn't have any Bechira to begin with, because there's no Bechira if there's no Das. Das is the idea of knowledge. You have some idea of truth. If there's no truth and false, then there can't be any Bechira. Because Bechira, ultimately, the choice is between true and false, right and wrong, right? So if both things are wrong, or both things are false, so between two avoided zoras, there's no Bechira, right? So he didn't have any Bechira because he didn't have any Das of Hashem. So until he had the Das of Hashem, then it gave him the Bechira to be able to decide what's right and what's wrong and which one am I going to do. Until that time, he didn't have any Bechira to begin with. So Hashem actually did him a favor by giving him Bechira, not by taking him away. But anyway, but this is the world in general. You can talk about a Tinnik Shemishma. a person who was educated in the Goyish Shadel, so he doesn't have a choice because he never knew what the truth was to begin with. So you can't say if he knew what the truth was and he went away from it, so then you can say that he chose, to go away. But if he didn't know what was right to begin with, then he didn't have a choice to begin with. All right.
So it's not Tinok Shenishbar, it's a Tinok Shenishbar.
Nishbar is Nishbah. Nishbah is captured.
Yes, but this is the opposite. This is the same concept. Someone who's so intellectual, but they don't have the basis of Torah.
Right.
And they go to the other side because there's no justification for them.
They were never exposed to the truth.
Yeah.
So therefore you can't expect them to know anything. That's why it's always been very difficult for me to understand the concept of a person being born in an assimilated family and going his whole life like that and dying like that. In other words, what was his life for? I mean, if he doesn't, So you have to say that there was some kind of a tikkun that this neshama had to do, that maybe one or two mitzvahs that he got. In fact, they say that even a Rosh Hashanah is full of mitzvahs like a Riemann. So the fact is, even Fra Yidden do lots of mitzvahs. So and the fact is, in a sense, you could say that it's to their benefit because they didn't have the education and they didn't know anything, so they can't be held responsible for the aveirus that they did. On the other hand, the mitzvahs they do get credit for. So it could be, in a sense, it could be a real tikkun for them. That in a sense, they can't lose because they can't be punished for what they do wrong, and they can only get credit for what they do right. Anyway, so that's what we did. So in the next section, we'll come into hopefully a more positive thing where he's actually coming out of all this. But we're kind of in the middle of the struggle at this point. Okay. The last 15 minutes or so, we try to go through a little bit of Menoiras HaMo'or. This is from Rabbi Yitzchak Abuav. His shul is here anyway. He's not here, but the shul is here. But he was one of the greatest. This is one of the most.
Where is he being? He passed away en route in Salonika, or where did he pass?
I'm not sure.
He didn't make it to.
I don't think he made it.
This was written with the first one.
It was the second one.
The second one was the one that teacher
Where was he?
they were both in Spain, but it's one that is attributed to see the
Second one that didn't write this? Could be there are a few different, versions of the story.
It's one of the
most one of the most accepted compilations of Midrushim, and basically that's what he did. He organized and compiled all of the different, a tremendous amount of the Midrushim and Agadata from the Gemara about various Musar subjects and put it all into one place where it's very accessible and very organized. So we've been talking till now a lot about, we were talking basically about the Yetzer Hara, how to fight the Yetzer Hara, and all the Takanas of Chazal and things. We're talking specifically about sexual types of temptations. So now he's talking about another aspect. He says, Kol Nistakel b'yom hadin, that anybody who looks at really contemplates and thinks about the idea of the Yom Hadin, the day of judgment. So he's going to be able, with that, that's going to help him to control his Yetzer Hara and his Taivas. And he won't come to do an Aveira. Moshe Mesechus Ovos says, like in Sech Lev, the Kavi Nahal Oimer, the Lifnei Mi'ata Usilitin Din Vecheshbon. If a person looks at three things, he's going to come to another Aveira. And one of those things is that he should have in mind from in front of whom is he going to eventually give a Din Vecheshbon, a Cheshbon. So he's going to go through a lot of this idea of Cheshbon. And Cheshbon is the idea of an accounting. In other words, a person has to know that he's accountable for every single thing he does. Just today I was talking with a cab driver who was complaining about different nisyonis he has, different agmas nefesh, different sufferings that he has to go through during the course of the day. Plus, people take advantage of him and has to do things he doesn't get paid for it, this and that. There's a lot of frustrations. So I was telling him, but he himself said, that a Rav told me that everything is specifically, there's an accounting for every detail, and everything the person goes through in their lives is for a reason. We don't know what the cheshbon is, but there is a cheshbon, there is an accounting. And I told him, just to give him a little chizik, that this idea that any suffering we go through in this world is worth a tremendous amount in Olam Haba. Because even the Chazal say that even to the extent of a person puts his hand in his pocket wanting to take out like a $20 bill, instead it only comes out a $10 bill, that itself is a kapora for a virus. That's enough to make a kapora. It's enough to be an atonement. So that, and because in this world, this frustration is taken very seriously. But Pirkei Avos is full of this idea that there's all written down. There's a cheshbon, there's an accounting, and nothing's for free, and nothing's for no reason. Everything has a specific reason for it. So, but that's a chizik, because the person knows that Hashem is watching and Hashem keeps track, and if I really am sincere about wanting to do the right thing, that He'll turn things around for my own good, even if it doesn't look like it. So anyway, so that's okay. The Kasina B'Nesachel Basra, Perek Amoichel Sesfina. Omer Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nachmuni, Omer Rabbi Yochanan. So he's going to have a commentary word by word on the psikim in the Midbar, that this song that they said, that the Moishlim said, Boy Cheshbon, that we should let's make a Cheshbon. Let's figure out this accounting. HaMoishlim ela Moishlim b'Yitzram. So the Moishlim, who are these Moishlim? He says Moishlim could be, the pundits or the poets or whoever they are that are giving this up. And he says Moishlim is the people. Moishlim is a lotion of being Moishel HaYitzor, controlling your own Yitzhar. So these are the tzaddikim that are able to control the Yitzhar. How do they do it? So they're giving like an eitzah, good advice how to do this. So he says Boy Cheshbon. They say, come, let's make an account. Let's make a cheshbon here. Let's make an accounting. Let's look at the big picture. Make an accounting for what's going on on the global scale. Hefsed mitzvah keneged schura, schar aveda keneged hefseda. So that's the cheshbon we're making is to measure, to take into account. It's like a balance sheet. Taking what do they call it? The profits against the losses, right? You have to make an accounting of how much is what you're going to lose by doing this, what you're going to sacrifice by doing a mitzvah against the reward that you're going to have for doing it. And on the other hand, to compare what do they call it, the immediate gratification that you get from doing an avera compared to the hefsed, the punishment that you're going to ultimately get for that, for having done that avera. So you start to make that kind of a question, because what's the cheshbon talking about? You're talking about taking a worldly sum as opposed to a eternal sum. So how can you compare the two? You're talking about something that's only limited to this world for a very, very limited time, and even if it would last your whole lifetime, but it doesn't, because the momentary momentary benefit you get from doing it there is not, doesn't last, and whatever you suffer by doing it also doesn't last. So as opposed to something that's very, very lasting, both in terms of the punishment and the reward. So when you make a simple cheshbon like that, the whole thing doesn't make sense. It doesn't stem with the seichel. What's the idea of making a cheshbon? You're invoking the seichel. You're taking it out of the level of a impulsive action. To go out and do something, and without thinking about it. You're starting to think about it. And once you start to think about something, once you start to turn on the seichel, the moichel, you start to bring that into the picture, then all of a sudden the whole thing doesn't make sense. And you can pull yourself back, and you can make, this is the only way to control the Yitzhak. The Yitzhak is trying to get you to do something right away. Don't think, just do it. You see it all over the place. Just do it. They're trying to get you just don't think. And start this, because as soon as you start to think about it, you think twice and you think, this doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense. As long as you believe that there is such a thing as Olam Haba. If you believe it's only this world, then you're in trouble. And then you're in trouble for lots of reasons. Because as we see from Koheles, the whole cheshbon doesn't make sense. Because the things that you're striving for in this world also have no kiyum. So then a person gets to total depression, because if you only look at this world without a cheshbon of the next world, the whole world doesn't make sense at all. So you can only make sense out of the world if you take consideration as a big picture involving the Olam Haba as well. So then, once you start to think about Olam Haba, then it takes you out of the domain of the Yitzhak. Also says that this thing we also learned last week. There's a Zohar for the last week's parsha, it talks about what does it mean that Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim? He took us out of the domain of the Yetzer Hara and the Sitra Achra and put it into His domain. So instead of us being slaves to the materialism and everything of the Yetzer Hara, now He put us into a position that we're naturally ben choyer, free, because we're slaves to Hashem, who's the ultimate freedom. So it was by putting ourselves into the domain of Hashem, under the protection of Hashem and in His team, so to speak. Now we've been taken out of the whole problem of Gashmias. We're not trapped in that limited framework anymore. We're all of a sudden elevated into a limitless framework. So now that Hashem elevated us by becoming His slaves, we became actually free. Whereas Paroi, who didn't know about anything other than materialism, was totally a slave to materialism. So he was the real slave, and we, coming out of that, we became free. So that's the idea. It says that in Mitzrayim we were slaves of slaves. We were slaves to slaves. When we came out of that, we became slaves. We became free. So he says, "Boy, so he says, Tibuna Sikoini. So then it says that it will be built and established. What does it mean? That if you do this, not only will we have the Olam Haba, it means that you will be established, you will be built up in this world, and also you will be established for Olam Haba. So the schar of Olam Haba, our good mitzvahs in this world, is double. We get double schar. We get it in this world and we get it in the other world as well. Because even though it says schar mitzvah there are certain mitzvahs that we do get schar for as well. A few more minutes, okay? Ir sichoin. Okay, so what does that mean? In meisim udam atzma ka'ayir zesh mahalach akasikunua maksiv achla ki eish yotzamechaz. So he says, he's saying that the Yetzer Hara wants to follow anything that sounds nice. It's like anything that shines, right? He thinks that's gold. So it's like a donkey. That if somebody is talking to it, talking to it nicely, it'll follow them. Doesn't know who he's following, whatever. It's talking nice, so I'll follow. So people have a nice sprach, or they're convincing, or they're good advertisers, whatever it is. The Yetzer Hara will lead you in their path. Whereas it says, so if a person does that, then ultimately there's going to be eish yotzer cheshbon. That then a fire is going to come out because he's not making a mistake. Then the cheshbon is coming out of fire for the people that don't make a mistake. Okay, because he's not making a cheshbon. He's just following something that sounds nice. Then he's going to lead him to the Shabbos. And then he says lahova mikirias sichoin, mikirias hatzadikim mikirias sichoin. So he's talking about that this flame is going to come out from the tzadikim. I'm not sure exactly what he means by that. Why exactly coming out from the tzaddik? There's a few possible explanations. You could say that the tzaddikim, because of that it says that whenever a tzaddik is in a place, so the people that aren't up to his level, it highlights, in a sense, the chesroinus, the failings of the people that are near him. Because before there was a tzaddik there was nobody to compare him to. But now there's a tzaddik there to compare them against, now their true level is revealed. So it's all relative, relatively speaking. So the person could be on the top. There are a few examples of that. Even Loit in Stoim, because there he was a big tzaddik, but against Abraham was nothing. But also there was by Yuya Nuvi, there was a woman who was refinas him, and as long as she was the biggest tzaddikas there, it was nothing. As soon as he came, so it kind of exposed that she was on a relatively low level, so she was afraid of that. There's two examples of it. So it could be that's the idea that when there's a tzaddik there, that leads to more punishment for the Rishuim. But he says that Ochla are moyav, so that's a person who goes against who goes according to the Yetzer Hara. Bale bomas arnu, or gasi ariach. Bomas is a reference to something high, so people hold themselves to be high. The niram, omer rosha ein ram. the Rosh says that there's nobody, there is nothing higher, that there is no, there's no Hashem. Over Cheshbon, there is no Cheshbon. It says that we drink and be merry because before we die, which by the way is a pasuk in Yeshaya. So the Goyim didn't make that up.
Can you repeat it? Can you repeat the same?
Eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. That's a pasuk. Ad divoin, hamtin ad shivodin. So he says to these people that are finally it's now. Wait until the din, eventually it's gonna catch up with you because he's dying. The nusim ad noifach ad shetetzel eish she'eda tzricha napach, until a fire comes out that doesn't need a bellows to inflame it. It's going to be a very big fire. Until he does what he wants to do. So this is a reference to the idea that, which he brings out on here, this concept that why was the door of Mabul? Why was the Mabul such a terrible thing? Because the whole time that the Yeshuim, the door of Mabul, were doing their stuff, Hashem didn't do anything. Everything was good, everything was fine. There was nothing to let out the steam. There was nothing to release the pressure that was building up from all these averas they were doing. So eventually, by the time the Polonius came, it was an explosion. It was like a huge, it was like gas that was building up and building up and building up. The pressure was so great that it just destroyed the whole world. Whereas the course of history since then has been more, local types of things, smaller different things that have been, the Holocaust, pretty global. But other than that, it's been more or less, things that have been slowly releasing so it doesn't build up all at one time. So it's actually a chesed that Hashem does, small things as opposed to allowing it to. But all of it, what he's saying here is that a person that lives his whole life without a cheshbon, or believing, or in Dafka, especially if he says that there is no cheshbon, and he said then it's going to eventually catch up with him, that Hashem's going to have patience, ad kan, but when the din comes, it could be a very good. So the Mishnah from there is that again, as we saw here, the whole solution is bring in the moichin to the picture. First of all, don't get so despaired, desperate, or so disillusioned, or so completely, yish, that you feel like there's no hope. That's also coming from a lack of cheshbon and a lack of moichin. Now, on the other hand, don't fall into chas v'shalom epicursis and start to either have tinus on Hashem or claim that there is no Hashem, because that's also coming from a place of no moichin. You have to bring in, seek and ask Hashem for the intellect and seek the intellect to be able to bring back, because that leads to more stability. That's the idea of intellect, of bringing down the moichin, is a stability and an illumination which can eventually dispel the darkness. Otherwise, the koifis ativim and the chitzonim are constantly trying to overtake us from all angles. They're trying to, it's a war going on. So they're trying to get these reactions like us down. And the only way to counteract that is to appeal to Hashem for make a Hashem. Thank you so much for listening.
This is your new camera.